Welcome back to Honestly Rated, and today we'll be talking about your favorite 4th of July enthusiast, Flare Wolf. As I take a look at comment sections for Honestly Rated videos, Flare Wolf is someone that I see sometimes pop up once and twice around there, and today is finally his day to really shine and show me how bright he can be by taking a look at his moveset and overall gameplay. But before we jump into the moveset, I want to tell you about Flare Wolf's lore. So, when he was young, he was trying to work all summer for his firework badge, because he was a scout. And he got it and was set to launch the St. Wigglesworth's celebration there. And with that, in Skylar fashion, some big old evil trolls decided to pull up. And in fashion too, Flare Wolf decided to launch all those fireworks into the night sky for everybody to see. And it scared those evil guys away. Everybody loved it. Eon, I guess, was there too, because he took a gander at it. It was like, wow, that's pretty cool. And he was going to offer Flare Wolf just a position to launch fireworks himself at 3rd place, but decided that he had a lot more potential to become a sensei. So that's how Flare Wolf became who he is now. One other thing that I also like to put forth into your noggin before we jump in is that this one's going to be dealing with a lot of lights. I don't know if you could tell, but a character that deals with fireworks normally is probably going to deal with a lot of flashing lights. So you've been warned now. You can't come after me now. Then the other thing is that if you want to see your Skylar potentially and Honestly Rated next, all you gotta do is drop it in the comments. I do pick off the comments, and if you don't know which one's already done, well, another good news is that I have a playlist with every single one on my channel, so you can go check that out. And if you see yourself coming back to these videos, it would mean a lot if you do subscribe, but, you know, that's all up to you. Other than that, though, let's see how bright these fireworks can really shine from Flare Wolf's pocket, or wherever he gets all of them, you know, he's gotta have it somewhere. Starting the show off, we have Rockets Away and Ride the Rocket. Now, Rocket Away is just a simple primary shoot move. You know, you press the button, a rocket comes out, you do it again, it does it again. Who would have guessed? The bigger thing about it, though, is that you're not able to move while in it. It does keep you pretty stabilized. You can turn, which is nice, but it's a little risky when enemies start getting a little bit closer. It does shove a bit. It's not like a full blast, but it does push back, which is pretty cool. The other thing that actually does fully shove is the rocket launch one. When you ride that rocket, you're pushing anything that's in your way out. And it is a very good traversal based move. It's probably one of the best ones we've ever seen. It really takes you fucking far. I feel like if you go on any map, any type of terrain based level, if you do maybe 2.5 rocket rides, you probably will be fine. You'll probably reach the other end. It's very good, obviously, for a shooter. And because of that, it's a very solid secondary move, just off rip. If you're level 1 to if you're level 20, it is always good. And again, the launch back kills things early if you got that cliff near you. So, pretty solid 2 moves. But again, we're talking about Imaginator here. They're going to need to start showing me some cool shit. My eyes need to go out of my skull to really give them that top tier 5 out of 5. So, let's continue on and see how flashy he can really be. Time to go on a little ride with Flare Wolf with Loop the Loop, the first upgrade you can buy. That upgrades are primary by holding it, and like it says, the rocket goes on a little loop the loop. It goes right behind you and comes right out from the front end once again. And you might be asking me, what is the big difference? You know, visually, other than the loop, there's not much there. Well, what it does is, I guess, it gains a little bit more force and does basically double the damage if you just shot a singular rocket. And it's still pretty fast. You're still locked into a standby mode where you can't move while doing it, and it lasts a lot longer than just a normal shot. But the big one about this one that honestly kind of surprised me is that you can actually have an active hitbox from the front end, from when it's flipping behind you, and from the back end when it's going under your legs, which is pretty cool. And it also does a subtle pushback. Not as great as just the rocket riding, but it's still a launch back. And honestly, to some degree, it is actually kind of better than just a normal singular shot, even though you can get multiple singular shots faster. I would say the pushback is probably more crazy on this one, and you'll probably get hit less if you're not in a big horde. If there's a big horde, you probably want to do a singular launch, but if there's not enemies coming towards you, or maybe you're stuck in a little place where they have to run towards you, I definitely see this as a pretty positive move. So, you know what? Yeah, I like this one. You know, it's kind of hard to make those kind of balance, especially for strong characters, but they really did with that one. All weapons can be used in different ways, and Secret Weapon is Flare Wolf's way of using his bazooka, which is using the back end and just utterly flaming everybody's face off. And it's pretty viable for the reason of that it has pushback again. Flare Wolf is a very pushy guy, if you can't tell. A lot of his moves end up having pushback to some sort. It's better than just the average rocket. I don't know if it's better than the loop-de-loop rocket, but it's definitely better than that one, and then obviously worse than the rocket ride. And what its main purpose is just to do really quick damage, and also be able to move without having to go too far. I still find this to be kind of like the lower half of the trilogy of moves. I even would put like the loop-de-loop rocket higher than this one on my like rememberability on using it, or what situations I would like to use it, just because, you know, when it comes to smaller enemies, you could probably kill enemies just with a normal rocket launch just because of how big the splash damage is. The pushback is pretty fine with, like, you know, singular characters, but at the same time, when I use a singular character, maybe I just want to do more damage, and I'll just do a loop-de-loop into a loop-de-loop to loop-de-loop, because it's also going to hold them back pretty well. So, I don't know. I think it's more based around bigger crowds, but at the same time, Flarewolf has a lot of things to deal with bigger crowds, so it's just something you kind of just remember. You're like, oh, okay, and then use it. And then you go on, and then you maybe don't use it for a while, and then use it again. So, I don't know. Maybe a couple upgrades, it'll make it a lot better. But for right now, I don't really see the biggest use in it. Last to go up before the pass is Trip to the Moon and Firecrackers. Firecrackers is just a simple add-on to the rockets that allow you to do rapid damage of 6 chip damage. And that's really it. It's whatever. The other big one, though, is Trip to the Moon, where you get to go up into the sky by holding down your rocket ride button. And you pull out a parachute, and you start firing rockets from the sky that always have a 100% critical crit chance. Again, there's also really not much to talk about there. The main use of it that I can think of is that you rocket ride away from enemies, then you go up into the sky and you start firing shit down. Because if there's enemies closer to you, I've noticed that sometimes they still have enough time to hit you. It really depends, I feel, because sometimes I feel like I'm able to get away fast enough, sometimes I don't feel like I am, because I'm stuck in like that whole landing position. Maybe it's just depending on the enemy and how fast they can hit. Things like those. But other than that, again, it's a pretty cool move. I enjoy having hold down buttons and stuff like that, but does it do a lot of different things? Not really. You know, it's still firing just fireworks. You're just a lot more safe, unless you got someone with a gun. Then you're not really too much more safe. You're actually probably worse or off just because you can't move. So yeah, maybe should have let us like Fortnite glide down. I don't know. Whatever. That's all I have to say about this one. On to the paths. Now, time for the greatest show in Skyland, starting us off with the Roman Candle and Sparklers. First, I'm going to talk about Sparklers just because it's a little bit more blurry in my mind, like directly how to explain it. But the best way I could say it is that, you know, there are some Sparklers, and from what I've seen, it just seems like it's an added on like 20-ish damage that is kind of like supposed to be like something like enemies kind of walk into and get hit by. But, you know, Sparklers are supposed to be like those like really shiny and flashy things that you think they would hit like multiple times. But it doesn't seem like it, and it feels like sometimes when enemies get into it, it doesn't hit them. I don't know. It's a very questionable thing. You know, with so many things like flying out of it, I'm not really seeing anything really connect, but I am seeing like added damage. I'm seeing like an added like 20 damage to it sometimes. So it's a very questionable at certain times. So that one's the one you really have to bear with me with that one. I know what it does, but it's just very questionable. And if it works correctly, is it just really fucking shitty in that sense? But yeah, the other thing that is added is the Roman Candle, which that allows us for our loop-de-loop to throw out a firework. Now, personally, that just sounds fucking stupid, but what it mainly does is just more added damage and added range, I would say, because I feel like I hit a lot more things because of it. And again, it's really a fucking like kaboom, so you would expect it. So yeah, mainly just upgrades, adding more things to make it do more damage and sorts. So they're not bad though. The only one, again, I got a lot of questions on the fucking Sparkler one though. That one's like, I know, but same time, fucking, it's weird. It's really weird. The last thing to the top path is going to be Flame and Shine, which is actually a pretty lovable one. I really like this one, and it makes more sense than the stupid Sparkler ones. It's in the same vein as Sparklers, but it just makes a lot more sense. So when you go up into the sky, using your parachute, little balls of fireworks and shit will go to the ground, and it'll hit a pretty wide margin for roughly 50-ish damage. And just like the other ones, they're just damage upgrades. In the long run of all of them, they're all damage upgrades to specific things. You know, the normal fireworks got one in the primary, and then everything else got a little touch. Loop-de-loop got a touch, the parachute got a touch, and the only thing that really didn't get a touch was our little flamethrower back end. So that is probably going to be the whole main thing for the bottom path. But other than that, there's nothing too crazy. We'll just have to see what the bottom path really does to equal it up. It's not like a far reach. It's nothing. I don't think anything's crazy up here. I definitely think it makes for a great fucking show, like it says from the beginning. Like the whole line is like, it is a fun of just a bunch of flashing lights and beautiful things to see. The only problem I would have is maybe change up the colors a little bit sometimes. You know, the sparklers. Why does it always have to be like silver and bronze? Why not give me something cool? Give me like green and yellows. But whatever, doesn't really matter. On to the bottom path. Going on to the bottom path, called Fun with Flames, where we get to be an absolute arsonist with Pyrotechnics and the Ring Master. Pyrotechnics is an upgrade that is good. I like it. It adds more length to our little flamethrower. It does a little bit slightly more damage. Not a lot more, but it does roughly like 10-ish, 15-ish. So, you know, again, to a flamethrower that I already don't really personally care for. I guess that's something that you would probably have. Then the second one is actually one that I like a lot more, and this deals with the loop-de-loop again, where this time we get 3 extra, baby! So, how it was before, where it's a lot more singular to an approach, with 3 fucking rockets, that does cover a pretty nice margin, and you can take on a pretty sizable group of enemies at one time without worrying to having to get hit. So, it's actually a pretty solid upgrade. What if you had to like tell me which one I would prefer, either the fireworks or this one? Well, even though the fireworks are more flashy, I definitely think this one has a lot more of a use to it, personally, than just added damage. It just adds even more coverage. It even adds that extra damage. And again, it's just, I feel like it's just better in that sense. So, I guess this one does get a 1, at least in that category over the top one. But, again, the firework one, I just don't really care for, or flamethrower one. But we have one more upgrade, so take a look. The last thing here is Flame Spinner, which is dealing with our fireworks again, where now there is a third tier to our little flamethrower, where we now do a spin for even more damage, doing up to 58 of damage. And it's, honestly, in my opinion, pretty fucking mid. The whole thing about the flamethrower, in my opinion, was it was supposed to be like a far range, movable thing to deal damage with, and now you took away the whole thing about it. Like, it's no longer long range. It is now up close and personal. The pushback isn't enough to really save you from a lot of damage. And honestly, I would probably not even buy this if I went with the bottom path. I personally probably would still probably go with the top path, just because, again, it does look a lot more flashier. You gotta give it that. Even though I think I like the triple rockets a lot more in the bottom path, and I think I would use it a lot more comparatively to like fucking sparklers and stuff, that it's like a lot more passive wise. I just don't really care for the flamethrower, and this upgrade, if it was only the blue upgrade where it just made it longer and did more damage, and then maybe added something else that maybe it would just shoot out rockets out of it or something like that, I don't know, something like that, I think I could like it a lot more. Like, I was perfectly fine with the blue, like, longer tip to it. I kind of liked it because it added more to what I feel like it was supposed to be designed for, but then the spin just completely chodes it and it makes it super close up in range, and it's not like you can choose. It's just like holding down, so eventually you'll hit this point and you bring enemies closer to you, which is like, I don't know, there's not really like an explosive base move that kills things around you, so it's not the greatest, but that's what I think. And I honestly think you should probably go with the top path. I think the bottom path can work, but maybe just skip out on this move, which isn't something you want to hear from a fucking line that you have to, you can't change it, you know, this is irreversible. So yeah, on to the Soul Gem. Flare on the whole is very much an ender for a fireworks show. It is a big ass rocket coming down and having the face of Flare Wolf peek out, and it's a total crazy fucking behemoth of a move. For one, it does solid damage when landing. Then 2, it explodes and does chip damage to the enemies that are in it, and for enemies that can get flung, well, I think you understand what would happen next. It's a fun move, it's very visually nice, and it's very strong. Again, it lasts for a while because of the head just kind of like smiling, just kind of being there. I like it. For a Soul Gem, it's very fitting for Flare Wolf to have something like that, just a big ass thing. And again, very fitting for a firework user. The biggest firework, the biggest shebang is at the end of the whole list, so it's pretty solid too. Yeah, it's just a really good one. I really like it. Okay, last thing is Skychi, which is quadruple the power. Skychis really don't go to my whole shebangle, but it's still, I still like to talk about them. And this one's probably like the weakest one I've ever seen in my life. Man, a singular fucking rocket from this guy does like 50 damage, like fully max and everything. Yet the fucking Skychi does like 16 to 17 damage. That doesn't make any sense in like the slightest. I don't know why they made it so like criminally low. It would have been cool if they just did like a bunch of damage. It would have just been fun that way, but whatever. Probably one of the lamer Skychis I've seen since I've been doing Imaginary characters, so I'm hoping others are not like that, because again, that was just stupid. Time for the rating. After taking a couple of seconds to launch a couple fireworks at some orphans and really thinking about Flare Wolf, I'm ready to give you my rating on him, and he's going to be a solid 4 out of 5. Now, personally, I think the thing that really drops him from that peak level is that I honestly find that his like flamethrower-esque supercharging thing is just kind of lost it. Like, it just kind of lost it for me. Because again, in the beginning, it felt like something that you would use long range to move around and hit enemies from afar that would push back and just kind of do chip damage fast, but a lot more safer. And then it just completely switches up into a close combat based move that pulls in enemies that you will probably take a lot of damage for using. Just doesn't really make a lot of sense, and I don't think the damage really adds up there, because you can probably do a firework from long range and do the exact same amount. So, whatever. I guess it's just faster pace. So, you know, it really depends on what you're going for. But Firewolf is a range character, so I don't expect him to go melee. So, you know, I really think that's what really drops him. I think everything else is pretty fun though. The rocket, the parachute, the overall, just like the traversal one, the rocket riding one, that was super fun. I absolutely just love moves that like take you far. The pushback, again, he was a pushback persistent. He always loved to push back. So yeah, Firewolf is a solid character, and honestly, for Imaginators, for how, you know, pretty mediocre the game was for a final game, they kind of cooked with characters. I haven't had a bad experience with them yet, but maybe soon we'll find one that isn't that great. But other than that, thank you guys for watching. Again, check out the playlist if you want to see more. Subscribe if you want to see more Honestly Rated. These come out every single Saturday. But with all that said and do, thank you for whoever suggested it, and I hope to see all of you guys next week for another Honestly Rated. Peace.